Hey, good morning, Matt.
We're back.
We are back. Long time no see. Top of the morning to you and to everybody watching. I'm Brian Zimmerman, executive editor of Jazz's Magazine. This is Matt Micucci, online editor of Jazz's Magazine. We're back with you bright early on a Thursday morning for a very happy occasion. We are continuing our crate digging series, which is, of course, our throwback to the days, Matt, when, in a record store, you just dig through the crates to recommend albums to people, sharing music the old-fashioned way, Enough of these algorithms and personalized playlists. This is just person-to-person music recommendation. For our version of crate digging, we, of course, select a theme every week. And, Matt, I'm excited about this week's theme. It's jazz and Disney.
Ah, my goodness. Everybody wants to be a cat. That's the song, right?
Everybody wants to be a cat. Cat's the only cat who knows where it's at.
Yeah.
As a father of 2 children under 5, I listen to Disney pretty much all day, every day. And because jazz is my career, this just feels like a perfect blend. I was made for this moment.
I'll let you do. You should do the solo, actually.
No. I could certainly use the help from you, our resident film buff, our resident movie expert. Because, there has been a history not only of great music and music making with Disney, but of jazz in particular. I think back on some of those early Disney films, the Aristocats, certainly one of them, with tunes like Everybody Wants to Be a Cat, The Jungle Book, which had voice talent by Louis Prima. There's to today, even the new Pixar movie coming out soon, Soul, right, which is about a substitute teacher who wants to be a jazz musician. Voiced by Jamie Foxx, I think. And so there's undoubtedly going to be some nice jazz scoring in that movie as well.
Yeah, John Baptiste. Hey, Brian, before we start, just as a side note, what are some of your favorite Disney movies?
Putting me on the spot. I am a child of the 90s, so I kind of love the movies in the sweet spot of that Disney Renaissance, starting with, Little Mermaid, into Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King. Those are totally my jam. But I love the new ones as well. I like Moana, with music by Lin-Manuel Miranda. My daughter is nuts, absolutely nuts for Frozen. I'm pretty sure she can quote that movie start to finish, and I probably can too at this point. But I love The Jungle Book, Pinocchio, Dumbo. I love them all. What about you, Matt?
Oh, I always say 2 in particular. I mean, I like a lot of the Disney movies, but there's 2 in particular that I like. One, nobody else says. It's The Three Caballeros. Lots of great Latin-tinged music, lots of great samba going on. I think, and Donald Duck is my favorite character ever in anything. And the second one is Lady and the Tramp. So, and I just wanted to mention that as well, because Peggy Lee, this is the year of her centenary, so she obviously co-wrote the soundtrack to that movie, and I just wanted to highlight it.
2 follow-up questions. Number 1, can you do a Donald Duck impression?
Oh, all right. I'll do it because that's what the people want.
It's what the people want, Matt.
What does Donald Duck always say?
I kind of just there you go.
I can't say anything while I do that.
We'll take it. Yeah. We'll take it. Acceptable, I guess. Passable.
Daffy Duck is easier to do.
Well, we got to hear that now.
No.
Okay, we don't want to break
myself
the internet.
into.
We don't want to break the internet.
We'll do that for when we do the Warner
Looney
Brothers.
Tunes. Yeah,
Looney Tunes.
Follow-up question, Matt. Have you ever been to a Disney park? As you're going through the Disney parks, you're of course hearing great music. Have you ever been to a Disney park?
No, I've never been to Disney park. There's never been anyone near me anywhere that I've been. So.
I guess the closest one to you is, it used to be called Euro Disney. Now it's Disneyland Paris. right?
That's true. Yeah, I've been to Paris, but never there. No, unfortunately, I always wanted to go though, because I used to have those VHS tapes, and at the start of those, they'd always, or at the end of them, they'd always show these trailers of like Euro Disney Park. It would be for me because it was obviously European VHS, and I just see all these images, and I was like, oh, that place looks wonderful, but
yeah, and interestingly enough, uh, Disneyland Paris is the only Disneyland park, as far as I know, to host a jazz festival. I believe they
Wow.
did back in 2018 or 2019, a Disney Loves Jazz Festival. I know there was talk about doing it again, hosting it again. Of course, coronavirus kind of put a halt to that. But yeah, they held a Disney Jazz Festival, which I thought was pretty
Wow.
cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, without further ado, Matt, let's cue
Yeah.
the castle scene and
Yeah.
get
We, sh-
into our
we
get
should
into
add
our list here
that. We should add
of
that soundbite. Would have worked really well.
this magical area where jazz meets Disney. We selected some albums, where jazz artists covering Disney tunes, old and new. So, Matt, what do you say we go ahead and get into them?
Let's get into it. Yeah.
What is the
absolutely.
first on your list, man?
All right. So my first album is by Duke Ellington, and I'm gonna shorten the title because I've forgotten the full one. It's so long. Duke Ellington plays the original score of Mary Poppins. Actually, I should mention it's plays with. Very important. I'll mention why later, but it's obviously a take on the original score from the 1964 film composed by the Sherman Brothers. The film is Mary Poppins, of course. Duke Ellington is obviously, he's one of my favorite artists of all time. But I had actually never listened to this album before. And to be honest, I was a little concerned upon approaching it for this video. I just kind of looking up interesting albums to talk about, came across this one, a little concerned. But this is obviously great stuff. I mean, features a true showcase of soloists handpicked by Duke himself, including Paul Gonsalves and Johnny Hodges, plus the arrangements of Billy Strayhorn, and you can't go wrong with him. The fact that this album was recorded in reportedly 3 days goes to show what a great working unit they were, but also just comfortable as they were approaching a wide variety of projects around this time with incredible ease. And the inventiveness of the version of some of these tracks is amazing. Seldom do you hear a track that is just the same as the original version. There's one in particular that really stands out, and I want to highlight because it's so left field. It's the Step in Time track. It's really just this crazy minimalist, almost avant-garde take on what is actually one of the liveliest numbers in the film. If you've seen the film, it's just one of the wildest numbers in dance too. And that shows as well the sense of humor that Ellington could have in his music, which to me is always a sign of great intelligence. So as far as this project is concerned, it really strikes me as underrated because, like I said, the album is the title of the album is, might get it wrong now, Duke Ellington plays with the original score of Walt Disney's Mary Poppins. So it's not plays the score, it's plays with the score. And honestly, here they're really playing with it, and it sounds like they're having a lot of fun doing it. It's great stuff.
Very cool. Yeah, leave it to Duke to put his own witty, inventive spin on this music. In a sense, that matches the inventiveness of the movie itself. I mean, if you look back at that movie and look at the filmic effects that they were using to achieve, these magical illusions, some really, really creative stuff, back before CGI, when you could just have a computer do anything, they had to really use their brain power to make it look like she was pulling all sorts of stuff out of her bag or flying. So I love that movie. And I, of course, love the Duke. So I'm going to have to check this one out after we hang up our call here, Matt. So my first album on the list is also a throwback. We are going back to 1957 with Dave Diggs Disney by the Dave Brubeck Quartet. This thing was not underrated. When this thing came out in 1957, I think it was his, second or third, definitely top 5 best-selling album for Dave Brubeck upon its release. And it's easy to see why. I mean, Dave and Disney music just seemed like the perfect match. He is a West Coast guy, and apparently this record was inspired by a trip to Disneyland with his young children. But just great kind of West Coast jazz takes on Disney standards, Alice in Wonderland, Give a Little Whistle, Hi Ho, When You Wish Upon a Star, not the least bit schmaltzy at all. A lot of Disney covers tend to head that direction, when they're pulled from the original score. This absolutely swung top to bottom, and that has a lot to do with the band as well. I mean, Dave has kind of joined. It's his usual quartet with Paul Desmond on saxophone, Joe Morello on drums, and Norman Bates on bass. Just a really great record. It was reissued not too long ago. I want to say 2010, 2011, with 2 additional songs, Very Good Advice and So This Is Love. And Very Good Advice is from Alice in Wonderland. That's right. And So This Is Love is from, what is that tune from? Cinderella. That's right. So again, this was a great album when it came out, made a big splash in 1957, and it has endured to this day. If you haven't listened to it already, I encourage you to go out and spin it now. Now's the time.
Great album. I love that album.
All right, Matt, what is number 2 on your list?
All right. So, so whereas the Duke Ellington album I talked about was still relatively new to me, this next album I was familiar with. Not so much with the album, but these songs I'd already heard plenty of times. You hear them occasionally as well on TV and other places. So it's by Louis Armstrong, and it's called, I forget, what's it called? Let's see. Disney Songs The Satchel Away. I really should have noted down the titles. Disney Songs The Satchel Away. Okay. So the one thing that the 2 albums do share, though, is that they're both so much fun, and it sounds like they're both having so much fun performing these songs. But also, just let's look at the titles, the track list. So you got songs like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, Zippity Doo Dah, Chim Chiree, Hi Ho, puts a smile on my face because we know Satchel was the innovator, some would say inventor, I would agree to a certain extent, of scat. So, I mean, it's just perfect. It's a match made in heaven. These easily could have emerged just as easily from his legendary Hot 5 recording sessions. Why not? I mean, Disney and Armstrong seem to be a match made in heaven, like I said, because they're both essentially globally beloved. Mm-hmm. And also, so much fun, and they speak out to so many people. And the general sound of this album is just that quintessential sort of all-stars Armstrong sound that sort of defined the second part of his career. And at this late stage in his career, Armstrong was one of the biggest music stars in the world, but also his health wasn't great. I've read, and it's kind of a known fact that around this time, doctors were telling him not to play the trumpet because it was just not good for him to do so. But in this album, he still plays. I mean, it was released in 1968, so not too long after that, he would pass away. But so he actually plays the trumpet here, aside from performing the songs vocally amazingly. And like I said, having so much fun doing it. There's so many great highlights. My favorite, though, I think, is the take on Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. It's just so much fun.
I bet, and you're right. The Satchmo style kind of lends itself to these mid-century mid-century Disney compositions. And in fact, the popularity of Louis Armstrong and Disney kind of trace each other. So they were both, when you think of Disney movies and Disneyland, especially, and Louis Armstrong, just like you said, emblematic of, American art. And this is a classic album, a perfect fit for Louis Armstrong. So nice pick, Matt. All right, I'm going to bring us a little bit into modern territory with my pick. And we'll start with this one. It is a compilation that came out in 2011 called, we've been banding about this name a little bit, Everybody Wants to Be a Cat, Disney Jazz Volume 1. Like I say, released in 2011. Interestingly enough, the name of this album is Disney Jazz Volume 1. I don't think there was ever a Volume 2. And people watching No
It's
better. You
like
can correct me on that. Yeah.
that's like
It was
Mel
like
Brooks,
History
the
of the World.
history of the world.
Yeah, volume one. I don't know if there was ever a volume two. But that's okay because volume one is excellent. It kind of cobbles together songs from the past. There is a cut by Dave Brubeck on there, as well as interpretations of Disney tunes by some great contemporary artists. Roy Hargrove leads off the album with the title track, Everybody Wants to Be a Cat, and it's just as swinging as you might expect. Esperanza Spalding is on this album as well. She has a very creative take on Chim Chimery. Joshua Redman does You've Got a Friend in Me from the Toy Story series. So again, we're kind of expanding the Disney canon now into the Pixar stuff. And then the Bad Plus do a really kind of quirky, odd metered take on Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. But it's just a lineup of really kind of forward-thinking artists here. Artists you may not necessarily pair with the Disney canon. Gilad Hexelman, Kurt Rosenwinkel, Alfredo Rodriguez, Mark Rapp. But, again, it just goes to show you Disney has universal appeal. And if the bones, if the DNA of the song is good enough, it can be played by anybody. It can be made personal by any type of musician, forward-thinking jazz musicians included. So yeah, this one, Disney Jazz Volume 1. And again, I don't know if Volume 2 was ever released, but I'm totally satisfied with Volume 1. Everybody Wants to Be a Cat. That was my pick for number 2. This was a Universal release, by the way. This was a Universal Music compilation. So yeah, still available. Go spin it. Go buy it.
Right.
All right, Matt. How about you? Number 3, your third and final album, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yes. So we're on to more recent releases now. This was very recent. It was released earlier this year. In fact, we've talked about it in a previous video as well. It's Kat Edmondson's Dreamers Do. And I included it in this list because firstly, it includes really inventive takes on a couple of Disney classics, including, I think, a highlight of the album, a really sensual, almost eerie and dark take on When You Wish Upon a Star, which must be one of the most covered songs in the Disney repertoire. But also Brian Wilson's favorite song. Brian Wilson's from the Beach Boys. But this version, you've never heard a version of this song like this before. So there really is something on top of that that kind of shares a fundamental feature with Disney. And that's cinema, because essentially this album is so cinematic. Conceptually, of course, it's inspired by all things nighttime, dreams, feelings you may feel, anxiety that you may feel during the night, all of that stuff. I think it reaches its cinematic peak with one of the highlights of the album, in my opinion, Too Late to Dream. Very cinematic. It sounds like a musical song from the mid-50s, mid-20th century, thereabouts. Something that would have been sung by someone like Doris Day, very emotional stuff. And all throughout, you get these beautiful arrangements. I've heard probably the most beautiful I've heard in any album released this year. Transportive and consisting of various styles ranging from like the symphonic to the Latin tinged and beyond. So in my books, this is one of the most beautiful albums of the year. Like I said, aside from the interpretations of the Disney songs that are featured in this album, the spirit of this album actually recalls the magic of a lot of the Disney classics as well. Because let's face it, Disney movies aren't just for kids. They touch the lives of adults as well. And here we see a lot of that magic replicated and musically by Kat Edmondson, whom you interviewed for Jazz Is Live, right?
For this very live stream, right? She even performed a little bit for us. Yeah, I love a good concept album, and of course, that's something we try to highlight during these crate digs, this concept being Disney, but this unique spin on obviously not just Disney, but this whole idea of twilight and dreaming. You don't see concept albums like that anymore. So yeah, that was one of my favorite albums of the year as well. Okay, we are going to wrap with our final album in our crate, so to speak. This is a compilation that came out in 2016 called Jazz Loves Disney. This is a Verve record compilation, and it's a 13-track album that just, the idea was to give a kind of big band treatment to, some of our favorite Disney standards, with jazz stars at the helm. And this one really was, star powered. Jamie Cullum leads off this album with the same cut as the last album. Coincidentally, Everybody Wants to Be a Cat. But you got some phenomenal vocalists, backing him up on the track list. Melody Gardot, Stacey Kent, who does a French version of Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, which is pretty cool. Gregory Porter, who just has like a heartbreaking take on When You Wish Upon a Star. China Moses is on this album. Hugh Coleman, Nikki Yanofsky, and Hot Sardines, who are kind of like, if you don't know the Hot Sardines, they're a modern trad jazz band. So think like the Dixieland traditional New Orleans band, but they do a lot of covers of modern songs. They do I Wanna Be Like You, both in French and English from the Jungle Book. So yeah, this was a really exciting release when it came out back in 2016. This one does have a follow-up. This one does have a volume 2. And I looked it up. It's got Bebel Gilberto on volume 2. Jacob Collier does a really kind of funky take on Under the Sea. George Benson does You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan, an underrated Disney movie, by the way. So this one does indeed have a volume 2. There was also something of a mysterious precursor that came out in Japan a few years before called Modal Jazz Loves Disney. Yes, released on a Japanese label. Featured a lot of European ensembles, covering Disney tunes from Winnie the Pooh and, Hunchback of Notre Dame. Till Broner, the trumpeter Till Broner, was on this album. I don't know that it's widely available here in the States, but it was called Modal Jazz Loves Disney. This was just, a recent compilation that I happen to love, again, because each one of those jazz vocalists, for me is just top of their craft. So Jazz Loves Disney on Verve came out in 2016. That is my third and final pick.
Wow.
And that is all, folks.
That's all. Well, that's Looney Tunes.
We're back on Looney Tunes again. But hey, that was certainly fun.
Yeah.
Two of my loves right there, jazz and Disney. I've been to the parks, man. I grew up in South Florida. So, for South Florida kids, a trip to Disney World is like a rite of passage. I've been many, many times. I love Epcot. I love Magic Kingdom. I love Animal Kingdom. I love them all. So, yeah, I know Disneyland, I think, is still closed. Disney World is open. But in the meantime, they're continuing to release movies. We've got our Disney Plus, to keep us satisfied, us Disney fans.
Yeah, sure, exactly. The Disney fix is out there. You just got to take it. So is the jazz fix if you want it. In the meantime, if theme parks or whatever, Euro Disney's or whatever, I wish they hadn't changed that name, actually, because now I'm just going to keep calling it that for the rest of my life. But
well, I know it was not so warmly received, shall we say, when it first opened. Isn't that the case?
I don't know. I don't remember. I was a kid. I missed those days, though. Just rewinding the tape and watching those. I had so many Disney VHS tapes. I don't even remember buying them. I just remember they were always there. I was a baby and they were there. I was a firstborn and they were there. I don't know where they popped up. But so many movies, and you just watch them on repeat all the time. And wow. Yeah, so there's a little bit of Disney in all of us.
Totally. The soundtrack to my childhood and to yours and to countless others. Yeah, and these jazz albums are, for jazz fans and Disney fans, a perfect way to, bridge two passions. So again, if you're watching this and you have some recommendations for jazz Disney albums or jazz Disney songs that we missed, let us know in the comments. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that notification bell so that you know when we're going live. And in those comments, feel free to let us know which theme you want us to take up in the next episode of Crate Digging. We do these every Thursday at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
All right, man. Speaking of jazz and movies, by the way, our new print issue, the Jazz's Winter 2020 and 2021 print issue, is on its way to subscriber mailboxes now. It's all about jazz and movies. So classic jazz film scores, jazz documentaries, jazz musicians on their favorite movies. Super proud of it. I think you can still subscribe. If you go to jazzes.com/subscribe right now and sign up for even a trial subscription, you'll receive this issue, as well as unlocking all the digital content on jazzes.com. So yeah, if jazz and movies is your thing, if jazz and Disney is your thing, you've come to the right place.
All right.
All right, Matt. I will see you next week for another episode of Crate Digging. We'll think of a theme, but in the meantime, what do we say? Have a magical day.
Yeah, man. Always have a magical day. Always, all the time.
That's right. All right, Matt.
Ciao.
So long to you and so long, everybody. Bye.